So I'm Scott Cuthbert, co-founder of Safeopedia, and we got an exciting episode today with Randy Milliron, who's the safety professional extraordinaire with the city of Gillette and a man about town. I'm sure you've probably seen some of his handiwork on LinkedIn or YouTube, and we'll dive into that in a little bit. But Randy's joining today to kind of a post Safety Connect 2024 uh, uh, review or look back, I guess. I mean, it was only a week or so ago, but just talk about. We're going to get him to talk a little bit about his experience over the years as an attendee, and then he was a presenter this year as well. So we'll dive into that. So, Randy, before we get started, is there anything that you want to share with the audience before we start talking Safety Connect?
Well, I mean, the important thing, so I have been involved. I'll kind of go through the questions as you presented them. But the first thing is how I first found Safety Connect was through the Safety Justice League, 4 or 5 years ago. And so they were really promoting this virtual safety conference, and they were actually promoting it. I want to say it was around January, February. And then here, where I live in Wyoming, we had the COVID shutdown in March, about the second week of March. So being able to all these conferences that we had already kind of registered for, that we figured that we're going to get canceled due to travel arrangements and stuff, and then obviously COVID. So this thing came along just at the most perfect time. And the interesting thing is finding out that they had actually been planning this for months beforehand. So it wasn't like, hey, we did COVID, now we're going to pivot and have this conference. But for me, the first year, there's a couple of us of the founding members and others that have been here from the start, that initially when you first participate in an event like this, it's a lot to take in. So, and especially our first 2 years on the platform we used, it looked like a virtual safety conference. I mean, you had people walking the halls and stuff. And so it was kind of hard to kind of navigate. And I really appreciate the effort that Safepedia did this year that really streamlined it and made it very easy to get involved and get around inside the web portal with the program. So as an attendee, you're just like shocked. I mean, there's so many people. Obviously the virtual safety lounge, there's a lot of conversations going on in there, and you're trying to keep up with those and then attend the sessions. And one thing, as a presenter this year, what I was very fortunate to hear is that during the sessions, the lounge was closed down, so people really had to go attend a session. So
Yeah.
but the thing that was really funny is I have to give a shout out to Abby Ferry. So I was really struggling with this new web camera that IT gave me. I'd never used it for a session before, and Abby and I were in the actual chat in Safeopedia or in Safety Connect, and I was kind of sharing my frustrations. I'm trying to get high enough and zoomed in enough, and so she knew my background of having my own YouTube channel and YouTube studio. She goes, "Well, why don't you just go home and do it there?" And I'm so thankful that she did that, because I felt so much more relaxed. I mean, my studio is really like my battle station, my safe place. And so to be able to use a sit stand desk and actually stand, it made me feel a lot more open, that I could kind of move around uh, and still do the presentation and still give the same passion and really the passion that I had for the topic I was speaking on. So
Yeah.
there were just so many different great things that this Safety Connect was so much better than the years past.
Yeah, and so you touched on a number of things there. So if we step back,
Okay.
it was I think one of the things I wanted to kind of point out today is that Safety Connect has become a fairly recognized event within the section a segment, I guess, of the safety community.
Mhm.
And some people don't even know the history of it. It was a Safeopedia initiative. Like Randy said, we were thinking about it in 2019. I had attended a couple of energy conferences that were virtual or hybrids, and I thought
Mhm.
this was a unique opportunity. And we agreed that it was a unique way to deliver professional development credits to people who might not be able to get to uh, physical events. We didn't realize how obviously COVID was gonna put a stop to that in 2020 and 2021, but we just wanted it to be accessible, cost effective, and so it was a Safeopedia initiative. Safety Justice League was, very, very instrumental in helping us market it and also make it the event that it was by hosting the lounge like you talked about.
Yeah.
So we had that the first few years, the idea was let's have a Zoom lounge open the whole entire time. And it's like the Safety Justice League, you're gonna host the lounge and you're gonna be entertaining the whole entire time, right?
Yeah.
And they signed, they were great sports. Abby and Jason signed up for it. And the post review that we did with them after 2020 was they were like, this is exhausting. Like, you have no idea how hard it is to talk for 8 hours and keep people entertained, and keep the conversation going. And so fast forward to what we did this year, I think you made a point of it, was we said, hey, when the sessions are on, the lounge is closed, no hanging out and goofing
Yeah.
off in the lounge. Get to a session and see a presentation, and then let's come back to the lounge and let's talk about it. So some lessons that we learned over the years, to keep people focused. But one, I do want you to take us back to 2020 and 2021, and because I know that I think one of the most important things that Safety Connect delivered on was helping people make connections, build friendships,
Oh,
build professional
yeah.
peer-to-peer kind of connection. So talk a little bit about, because I think people jump in now and it's like you show up at a house party where everybody knows each other and you're
Yeah.
the new person, right? So tell us about what it was like that first year and the connections that you made and how that's carried forward in your personal and professional life.
Yeah, so kind of a long story short. So I had been kind of asked or kind of pushed out of my comfort zone in 2018. So I was attending a conference. I remember I was walking through the expo hall and I ran into Tim Page Barborth, and he like called me by name, which I thought was shocking. I was like, this guy even knows my name. And so he called me aside and he said, Randy, he goes, you really need to get more involved. And I'm like, oh, I am. I'm attending the expo. And he goes, no, like involved with the practice specialty, involved with ASSP, involved with NSC. And I kind of walked away from that, not thinking that I had much to offer. But one thing that he said to me that stuck with me, and it still stands today, is he said, Randy, you have a story to tell. And I'd never had anybody say that to me. And I was like, I mean, I do have 26 years of experience in management, leadership, and safety. So it really changed my thinking. So going into my first Safety Connect, I was kind of a wallflower. I'd have my mic muted, I'd have my camera on, and I'd be, listening to the conversation. But I had already developed a good rapport with Jason, and Abby. So they would like specifically like really call me out, like ask me a question, or some of the questions they would ask, you got more comfortable in having your mic on, having your camera on. So in the first year, it was really kind of, you're really checking it out. Like, what is this really? I mean, I've attended tons of Zoom meetings before, but what is this going to be like when you have 40 people in the same room trying to talk? But Scott, you hit it perfect, because every year it seems like when we get to the lounge, the people that have been there since the beginning, we do have phrases, we do have stories that have come from previous versions where we almost have to time out and say, oh, for those new people, by the way, Gabe had this virtual background and that's what we're referring to. And then everybody that had it pulled it up to show them. So it's not like, it's not the cool kids club, but it's really an open environment. We had so many people that were just like me that started in their first year and then started to kind of reach out a lot more. And then the thing that I shared in my session, which really tied right into Safety Connect, is to be a very good safety professional, you really need to expand your social network. And what better way than to be forced in a Zoom meeting with 100 other people that you don't know? The other thing that's it has a kind of a celebrity vibe to it, because going back to the live conferences and having someone come up to you and say, oh, you're Randy Milliron from Safety Connect. I remember you, or I remember you from, the Safety Justice League podcast or Illusion of Safety podcast. So it's interesting to tie those two things together. And the thing that I stressed in my session was, there are so many people out there that are doing probably the same job that you are. And it expands it expands your connectivity. That's one thing. But anytime you have an issue or there's a problem you're coming up, you have that network that you can reach out to now and say, hey, does anybody, have an issue with fall protection, or like the new heat standard that came out, in a municipality like I work. Hey, how are you implementing this new policy this new program, new regulation that's coming out? So I really like the opportunity that Safety Connect has provided in really allowing us to expand that social network.
Yeah, and it's been great for us to see when people come back and there is that the familiarity, obviously, like you mentioned, and that celebrity too. And I mean, we say that very, very humbly, right?
Yes.
But to be able to go to conferences and meet people in person and recognize each other from this virtual event. I think you touched on it too, but obviously, 2018 and 2019, we weren't necessarily as comfortable on Zoom, and by the time we got through COVID, everybody, like, I don't do phone calls anymore. I do video calls. So, I think that navigating the platform and keeping it simple and comfortable is key. But yeah, luckily, everybody's got Zoom or Teams and those sorts of things, and they're a little more comfortable on these sort of technologies, right?
Yeah, and as an extrovert, I mean, I love to be around people. So it gives you a great opportunity to, maybe there is someone that's a little more introverted than you are, but just simply having that conversation in the lounge, that again, they get to have the same feeling I did, that, hey, there's something about you that I want to know. Hey, can you expand on that? The vulnerability and transparency that happens in the lounge, it's amazing. So I mean, people get pretty deep into their conversations. Now, it's funny that you mentioned 2018, 2019, because back then, no one had their camera on except for the person that was probably presenting.
Right.
Now we're a little more open to having that camera on to have those interactions. And really, the thing that I love, and it's why I love video so much, is I love a podcast, listening to great insight from great safety presenters. It's wonderful. But to actually see them on video and their interactions and their body language, man, that sets the level for me. And that's why I absolutely love doing that.
Yeah. Well, one of the other things I wanted to chat with you about today too is just again, you kind of touched on it in the intro, but the benefit of doing it online or virtual is you get to experiment a little bit more. It's a little easier to try things out than, if you're in person, you've got to book the rooms and you've got to book the exhibit hall, and you can't move things around quite as easily. So we did have, for those of you who remember, we had the kind of the virtualized trade show layout.
Yeah.
And there's some benefits to that and some downsides. But I think that, we learned from that, and we learned, like, the exhibit hall experience. We took feedback from the exhibitors, and that's partly why we made the change. And one of the things that we did was, we out at from a Safeopedia perspective, we always want to be educational first. And we've always told, if you're doing a webinar, you're doing a white paper, you're doing a presentation, this isn't a commercial.
Yeah.
You need to bring some valuable educational content, right? And so we do polls and surveys after each conference. And one of the things that would kind of surprised me a little bit was the safety professionals, the attendees, were saying, hey, we're here also to learn about new products and new
Yeah.
offerings. And it's okay to work some of that into the conference, right? So we did, last year, the year before, we introduced that product showcase day, where it was a Zoom meeting. Everybody could come on camera. Everybody had a
Yep.
chance to turn on their mic and ask a question if they wanted. But the exhibitor was presenting, a product, a service, whatever, uh, you know, combination they choose to present. And I was I was terrified, you know, that nobody was going to show up for product showcase day, and our exhibitors would be, you know, absolutely distraught. But like over 100 people, 150 people showed up, and it was a really interesting experience. And I know you were in there and you're part of it, and you're always asking questions and you're making
Yeah.
sure other people are getting engaged. So, you know, what was it like from your side to see that evolution into that product showcase type
Well,
format?
and and I'm glad you mentioned that, because in the first couple years, they did feel very salesy. Like, hey, this is the EH&S software that I have. You can reach me in the link in my bio, and then I can, you know, or add your name to a newsletter. But what I really liked about this year and last year is the flexibility that gave to a lot of the vendors. So one that I can think of, and I'm probably going to mess it up, is it Warson?
Yep, Orson
I mean,
Brands.
you're in their shoe lobby. I mean, you're in the back room. I mean, how they set up the Zoom, it was just such a great opportunity to, I mean, hey, here's the latest, greatest, you know, steel toe boot we have. It's a composite toe, and they're showing you it. It's not looking at a static catalog online. It's physically seeing that, and then being able to ask those questions. Hey, does that come in a different color? Hey, does that have steel toe? Does it? I mean, I just asked a question one time. They were showing some of the tactical boots, and I said, hey, do you have that in a side zip? And the guy just goes back to the shelf and grabs it. He's like, yeah, it's right here. And you're like, oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Yeah,
So I love that. I love the interaction. And I know now from a speaker percent, that it kind of feels like you're just talking to the computer. You're just presenting to the computer. But when you have that ability to ask those questions during that Zoom call, it's great. And plus, they have that saved, so now they know that they can reach out to you. You had a question about that, and then it already creates that kind of relationship right away. You don't have to talk about, you know, what you do or where you work or what you're looking for. You reach out and say, hey, I'm interested in tactical boots, and they know what you need. So I love, in the first couple of years, I'm not going to lie, I'm going to be fully honest. The first couple of years, it was pretty boring, because one, they don't know how to present.
right.
They're just trying to offer their wares, whether it's Squincher or Warson, like I said, uh, or Chip with EH&S Momentum. It's just those things that it's hard to do. But once I think they got comfortable with it, then you got to see different types of presentations. I think it was it Craig with Moldex a couple years
Yeah.
ago when he actually demoed like putting on the mask and how he can put on the safety glasses and it doesn't fog up the safety glasses. I mean, seeing that, I mean, yes, it's across Zoom, but you're actually getting to see something that is a good takeaway and something that may lead you to actually making that sale. Whereas if it's a static PowerPoint presentation, most people probably tune those out. But when the vendors are interactive with the participants, man, it makes it so much better.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was, you know, I think, again, obviously biased when it comes to evaluating it, but you know, if you were at a conference and you're in one of those little side sessions and they're presenting,
Yeah.
you know, everybody has to sit quietly and watch the presentation, and maybe you get to ask some questions at the end
If there's time.
if there's time, right? But it's so lively in that Zoom environment because people are you know, posting comments, posting questions, chatting with each other, which wouldn't be cool if you were, like I say, in a breakout room at a conference. But in Zoom you can totally do that. And I think, to your point, the presenters who have learned to incorporate that into their discussion, um, like Mark Kirsch from Honeywell as an example, then it just makes it even that much better, because it really is dynamic and engaging. And like you said, with Brent from Warson, it's like, is there a side zip? It's like, hey, I'll go show you right now, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't scripted, it wasn't part of the plan, but it allowed, you know, for them to demonstrate their capabilities and their offering, but also, you know, have people like you in the audience participate in the presentation, not just kind of observe that presentation. So
Well, you hit on a good point, because when you're at a live safety conference and you're in the expo hall and you're walking amongst the 1,400 vendors, you're lost. So the
yeah,
thing that I loved also about, and I'm just like Pro Safety Connect, but you broke down the vendors into categories. So if I wanted to know about PPE, I could click on that one. If I wanted to know about tech, I could click on that one. And it showed all of those that were listed there. Plus, at the bottom, it showed you when they were actually going to do their demo. So you can
Right.
actually add it to your calendar and, oh, so I won't forget that. So I do like the interactive portion, but like when you're at the safety conference, excuse me, and you walk up to the booth, the first thing they do is, oh, let's scan your badge. Okay, where are you from? And you do this little playful, almost 5-minute introduction on what you're looking for. But in the Safety Connect, they're offering, steel toe boots or safety shoes or something like that. You're there for a purpose. You didn't just happen by the booth. You're
Right.
there. And how we set it up on the day 3, that we have a great opening session, and then we have a closing session, and we sandwich all those demos right in the middle. It's great because, whether you're at all of them or you're just attend the ones you want to, it gives you the flexibility to do that. Whereas
Yeah.
in a full-blown show, you're walking around with the crowd of droves of people. And especially if you go to a booth like Squincher, you're probably waiting to talk to someone. Whereas this, you have live interactive question
Yeah.
and answer back and forth. And I just loved it.
Yeah, it was something you mentioned there, just twigged, like it's a lot of people say, hey, they really appreciate the virtual format. They can kind of be at work, they can jump out, if there's a fire they need to extinguish and come back. And for us as organizers, it just blows my mind. It's amazing. Well, I'll get an email or a direct message on the platform, and it'll be like, hey, I have this appointment, or I have to step out to do this, but I'm coming back and I'm gonna, watch that one on demand app. And it's like I don't think like you know Jamie, Samantha, and I mean, we try to be as approachable and I think personable as possible, where there's no stuffed shirts over at
Yeah.
Safeopedia or Safety Connect. And it just floors me in a really positive way that people feel comfortable just letting us know, hey, I'm stepping out for 30 minutes, but I'll be back. It's like, hey, fantastic. Thanks so much for reaching out, letting me know. And I really appreciate the fact that we've created this environment where you feel like you can, just let me know and I'll watch for you at the next session. It's really
Yeah,
cool.
I don't know how many times I would like go over to the chat and send Jamie a private message like, hey, this is a really cool thing that just happened. Did you see that? And those
Yeah.
kind of things. So
Yeah.
where you're not going to get that positive feedback, that soon certain positive feedback. It, like when you get done teaching at a large conference, you don't get feedback for maybe a month later. I mean,
Right.
now you're getting that soon certain positive feedback from the people, especially the chat. So 2 things I have to talk about,
Yeah.
uh, kind of primarily from my session. So the only time I've ever presented on Zoom, I presented with our practice specialty, and usually it's 1 or 2 people, running the show. And so this was going to be the first time I was going to be live by myself. And I love the fact that it was Jamie that was my moderator. But so he was so good on the fly that because when I did the presentation at NSC in Orlando, you're pulling a live audience. So you're
Right.
like, hey, how many solo safety professionals do we have? Yeah, go ahead and raise your hand. Well, when I got to that slide, I was a little confused. I'm like, oh, crud, I don't know how to pull the audience. And Jamie's like, hey, no problem. Just kind of put it in the chat. If it's a 1, do this. And so it was funny going back through the comments, because even myself, I messed up because I said that, hey, if you're a solo safety professional, put a 1. And if you're part of a team, put a 1. And so when you look back through the chat and you see he said 1 for both of those. And so Jamie clarified it. And then he actually created the poll right in Zoom so people could go and do that. So that was great, meaningful information to get even after watching the replay and seeing that I think it was 58% of the people in the room were solo safety professionals. So that was really good. And then at the end, my ode to Tim in our Star Wars Infinity, when I asked, if you're which stage of your career are you a solo safety professional, using Han Solo as a reference, he quickly created another poll at the end. So it was really good to have that, where you guys are more used to this format, so you can really do that stuff on the fly. And I just totally appreciate that.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And Jamie's obviously quite proficient at all of those tricks. So that's good to hear.
I mean, I was so nervous. I mean, usually I get nervous before I present anyways, but doing it by myself, and like I wanted to get in a day before, like, can we get in there and practice so I can see, that the font's going to look good and this, and Jamie's like, no, we'll just meet 10 minutes before. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm totally freaking out. So I'm like elevating my desk, and it's funny because when you watch the replay, I'm still elevating my desk as he goes live. So my desk comes up and I'm like, hey, I think we're live. I'm like, oh, okay, great. So yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, and the one thing that we tried to do, and I'm sure we can't claim complete uniqueness on this, but we asked people from the community to present. Now, you had I mean you talked about kind of 2020, 2021, and Tim calling you out and asking you to get more involved. You had presented it live, at other conferences
Yeah.
before Safety Connect 2024. But we also, we asked some people who hadn't presented before, and they were a little bit shocked. They took a second for them to figure out if they wanted to present. But our thinking was, I think, kind of like Tim's, advice to you is that you don't have to just attend. You can become part of the conference, and
Yeah.
regardless of what stage you're at, there's somebody else who's aspiring to be at that stage, and so even if you're and I'll have to go back and rewatch your session because the Han Solo example, like are you just getting started? Are you in the middle? Are you the seasoned vet? But whatever stage you're at, like I said, you've got something to share. You've learned, you have some experiences, and so it was really I felt really blessed that we could go and ask. Like there was Wabiki, there was April, who unfortunately couldn't make it because of
Yeah.
an incident at work, and now I'm drawing a blank. There's two or three. It'll come to me in a sec. But hadn't ever presented before, and they got great reviews on their sessions, right? So, we'd love to see more people volunteering rather than being voluntold.
Yeah.
But I think it's great to see the headliners like Corey Pitzer or Malcolm Staves or Dr. Megan Chanter. Like those are great
Oh.
heavy hitters, but it's, I think, great to see, people who are in different stages of their career present as well.
Well, it's also neat because even if you are a new presenter, a couple things, those people are attainable and approachable. So Megan and I, after our little meetups that we have, she's become part of, like, she's a friend now. It's like, so I know her and she knows my story. Sarah Bellini Ross, same thing. I met her just moderating one of her sessions at the NSC Spring Conference, and we've been at every event since. So it's just
Right.
really cool to have those connections because you're creating connections, but you're creating long-term friendships. So that's a really cool point. The one thing I will share, that probably the best advice that I've ever had, and I use this when I ran the mine rescue teams out at the coal mines, was if we were planning to do a presentation, we would practice it. We would practice it and we would practice it and practice it. So I was very fortunate that I was giving the same presentation literally a month before at NSC. The only difference is, like, when we started, I didn't really know the timing. So I remember in my session, I asked Jamie, I go, hey, Jamie, how long is my session? He goes, oh, you got 40 minutes. I'm like, oh, crud. I got 60 minutes to cram into 40. Let's go. So, if you have questions, keep them in the chat. Jamie will keep me up to date, but I got to go. So
Yeah.
and of course, I obviously talk really fast, but so it was interesting that we still had, I think, like 3 minutes left for questions when it was done. But that's the one bit of advice I would have for anyone that, if you have the presentation, just really practice it so it becomes more fluid, it feels more real, those kind of things. But yeah, having the environment in Safety Connect to spread your wings is a great opportunity. But yeah, you have the big heavy hitters. I'm trying to think of oh, so side note, totally different story. I ran into one of our keynotes, Kathy Seabrook. So I saw her at an event at the NSC conference in Orlando, and I walked up, I go, oh, hey, by the way, because Christina Roll was introducing me to her, and I go, oh, Kathy, you're one of the keynotes at Safety Connect. And she was kind of caught off guard. She was like, I am. And I go, yeah, I have a promo video that is rolling out next week. It'll premiere next week, and you're actually included in it. And she's like, well, I guess I'll have to go look at that. So it was so neat to meet those connections. And it was funny when I was doing the video, some of those names I was not even going to try to pronounce. Like literally went to Google and said, translate this, try to, nope, no, I'm not, I'm going to mess it up. So
Yeah.
I apologize for some of those people I didn't mention in my video, but either way, it was still good.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it was Keanu Keone
Keone.
and Nicholas, who were again two community members who presented for the first time this year. Both of them, you know, seasoned safety professionals with really great stories to tell.
Yep.
They were like, hey, you know, they took. Keone didn't take any convincing. He, you know, as soon as I asked, he was like, absolutely. Um, Nicholas thought about it a little bit and was all in. And Wabiki, what I mentioned earlier, he's like, well, I've never presented like, you know, at a conference before. And so we paired him up with Brian McWhorter, who's like Jamie calls him the Swiss Army knife of safety. He's
Yeah.
done pretty much every imaginable job you could do, and he's just so many personal interests as well as professional experiences. And so they worked together, to your point, you know, making sure that Wabiki was ready for his presentation, that he had run through it a number of times and gotten some feedback from Brian, who had, you know, 30 plus years of experience and was a trainer for a really a safety trainer for a really large organization. So we, you know, we're not going to just throw people into the deep end and hope that they swim. We're definitely here to help, you know, support that along the way.
Well, and that's really kudos to, again, Safeopedia, because like, for instance, the sessions that Brian moderated, the question and answer, that obviously he's looking at the questions that are coming in, but you could see that something that like David Daniels would mention in his presentation that would spur a thought from Brian to, he didn't need the Q&A. He would just ask the question. So you have a really good back and forth rapport when you have that moderator, and it makes it so much easier.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is where we insert the, hey, stick up your hand and volunteer. You know, we're happy to get you involved. We're doing workshops and sessions throughout the year. And we're doing some mini connects, you know, in the spring. So definitely looking for people who haven't presented before or maybe aren't kind of on the professional speaker tour just yet, but are looking to maybe cut their teeth and get involved. So.
Yeah, that was the interesting thing. I'm trying to think of what you just made me think of. Oh, and you have my case where 6 months ago, I reached out to Jamie. Hey, is there any chance I can present it? I mean, I've boldly just asked, hey,
Yeah.
can I speak at Safety Connect? And he's like,
Yeah.
well, you know, what do you want to talk about? And I told him, and he's like, well, let me talk to Scott. And then yeah, sure. Yeah, we would love to have you. And so it was really great. You know, sometimes you feel like you're panhandling to speak at some of these events. And this time I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to ask. I'm just going to be bold and ask and
Yeah.
see if it works. But
Yeah. Well, and I mean, we're, um, again, you know, sometimes you're looking outwards when you should be looking inwards.
yeah,
So I was glad that you stuck up your hand and asked to present, because obviously it was really well received. And like you said, like 60% of the audience is in that solo
yeah,
safety professional kind of situation. And your story too of like working in larger organizations and smaller. So you've been in both scenarios. So that's a great place to come from when you're talking to people who might not have had that team experience before, right?
And even when I pulled the audience in Orlando, I was really surprised. So how I stated the question was, you know, if you're a solo safety professional, raise your hand, and probably about 60% raise their hand. And then you go, okay, those that are part of a team, raise your hand. And you probably got about 30. And I'm like, okay, the other 10%, you either are already asleep or you're just here for the free goodies. I don't know what it is. But the interesting thing in seeing that's a great thing about doing polls, is you gauge your audience. You see, like, let's say we had, you know, 30% were solo safety professionals and 70 were part of the team. The presentation was geared, so it gave tips to both. No matter which position you were in, I was going to give you some good tips and tricks to help you speed along your profession. So, because no one really did that for me. I mean, I spent my first 9 years in safety as a solo safety professional, and there was a lot of trial and error. But again, back to you know, revisit my topic of expanding your social network is,
Right.
if I would have had those opportunities back then, I probably wouldn't have had as many struggles
Right.
because I have a network now that I can reach out to. Back then, the only network I had was OSHA, and I didn't really. Sometimes you're scared to ask them questions. So
Yeah. Well, that's yeah, I mentioned it earlier, but polling attendees after the conference, asking what else we could do or what we could do to make it better. Um, a few years ago, we started hearing people saying, "Well, hey, if this is online and it's virtual, can we do it more than just once a year?" Right?
yeah,
And again, with the amazing partnership we had with SJL, we did some monthly meetups. We
yep,
experimented. We tried some different things, and again got great feedback on hey, it's we don't want to just show up and hang out. We need a reason to get together.
yeah,
So we had speakers, we had just open sessions. Different things, kind of trial and error, and but I think to that point that you're trying to make of building and kind of um, consolidating those professional networks, we said, hey, let's launch a community platform that's kind of in sync, obviously, with Safety Connect, because we can get together and
hmm,
do networking, do peer-to-peer kind of almost like a peer support group, right? Because a lot of
yeah,
times, I'm sure when you go home, your loved ones and your friends don't always appreciate, all of the stress, anxiety that you carry as a safety professional. So it's
yeah,
a bit of a peer support group. But then we can bring in with purpose, bring in some educational content and try to help people out in that regard too. Like we've got a workshop running with Corey Pitzer. We've got
yeah,
one with Dr. Megan
Megan,
Tranter. We've got
yeah,
we've got one coming out with Pat Robinson, sorry, around contractor management, and not it's not the pre-qual, it's like the whole thing, and it's an opportunity for safety professionals to, because again, we hear, how do I get ahead in my career? How do I get ahead in my organization? And bringing the workshops like Pat's as an example, it's like you're not going to become a supply chain
yeah.
professional necessarily, but if you understand that bigger picture, then you can be more influential and you can be more valuable to your organization. So we're trying to you know do these things on a regular weekly, monthly basis, so that we don't have to wait until October to get together again, right?
Yeah, there's a huge disconnect because, if you didn't maintain these friendships or connections with these people after Safety Connect ended, you're meeting once a year. And so when you guys rolled out the mini connects, I was like, well, this is going to be kind of fun, something
Yeah.
new, something different, and really appreciated, all the hard work that you guys do to put those on. But it didn't make you feel like you had to wait till October to see them again. So that's the thing I really appreciate about, because I love seeing you guys. So it's fun. I mean, you guys are a couple miles away from me, so I can't
Yeah.
just pop over to the office and sit down and talk about the next thing in safety. So it gives us a great opportunity to share those concerns that we have and really kind of voice our opinion. But yeah, it's a sounding board. I mean, if you're struggling with something at work that, your wife or kids probably don't want to hear about anymore, at least you have a safe community where you can actually share those issues.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we're getting up to time here, and
Yeah.
but I want you like, rather than me doing the commercial, you talked about it before we even hit record, about how obviously it's an event, and it's probably most valuable and most enjoyable to attend live,
Yeah.
but the platform is open, and so if people are listening and didn't attend, what should they be doing right now?
Yeah. I mean, when you look at what Safety Connect offers and the low price, plus you get the 2.4 CEUs, but there's just so much gold nuggets in all of those presentations that you can go back and rewatch until August of next year. So, whether you, let's say, subscribe, become part of the community, because that's what we really want you to be, is part of the community, but you have that opportunity to go back and rewatch those sessions. Most of the time when you go to a conference, you don't get to see the replays. The thing that I love about Safety Connect is you'll have three awesome presentations at the same time. Well, at a normal conference, you have to decide. And sometimes you decide you get in there and that's not the presentation you wanted to be in. And you're mad because you missed the other two. But with Safety Connect, you can go back and watch those replays all you want. So that's a great opportunity to go in and see that. Also, it's great because the chat is still live, not live, it's recorded. So you can actually see what was going on in the chat, the Q&A, you can see the questions. The thing I loved as a presenter, and I didn't know you could do this, is on the next day I went in, and because I didn't really want to watch my replay. Most people don't like seeing that kind of stuff. So I went in and I listened to the replay. And then I remember Jamie mentioned something about the questions. So I went in and I was able to answer the questions, all the questions that were in the queue. So I thought that was a great opportunity. Plus it gives you a great, you're attainable. It's personal, it's transparent with that person that asked the question. So, and plus if there's someone, which happened to me, is there somebody that asked a question in chat, and since I didn't answer right away, they actually messaged me the same question. So I was able to, in the chat or in the message, I could actually go in there and add more detail
Right.
in a message format. So yeah, if you haven't signed up yet, you definitely need to. I mean, it's low cost. It's a fun community to be a part of, and there's really great knowledge that was given during those sessions.
Yeah, well, I couldn't have said it better myself. And that the chat and the Q&A are technically still live in that you can still post, to that. And like Randy said, go in and we're encouraging speakers to go in and answer. And I think we'll probably look at having some sort of ask me anything sessions throughout the year so that, if yourself or Keone or some of those speakers had like 10 questions they didn't get to, it's like, well,
Yeah.
hey, let's come back and just answer questions rather than
Well, and I don't know how much time we have left, but one thing that's really important is the other benefit of Safety Connect is when you're at a large conference, no one wants to be the person to raise their hand to ask a question. In this, it's free forum. You just ask it. You don't. It's a lot more easy to ask the question than raising your hand and stepping up to a microphone in front of a room of 80 people. This
yeah,
way, you can just quickly keyboard warrior, send the question, and then get the answer. So I
yeah.
think that's another great benefit.
It does allow you to ask anonymous as well on the platform. So
Oh
if
yeah, yeah.
you can, most people are comfortable, I think, asking with their name, but yeah.
Anytime I saw that, I was like, who actually asked that question?
Yeah.
Hmm,
Yeah.
it's funny.
Yeah. So, well, thanks so much for joining
Well, thanks for
today
having me.
and kind of reflecting on Safety Connect 2024. And, obviously appreciate your continued support and participation and encouragement for us to kind of keep doing what we're doing and keep growing our footprint.
Yeah, anything I can do to help market either the conference or Safeopedia, I'm all in. I will follow up with a question later, and you can cut this out of our replay. But I do want to know more about Safety on the Edge, because
Yeah.
that was kind of dropped in one of the keynotes, and I was like, what was that?
Yeah. Well, let's actually, that's a great point. Let's talk a little bit about that, and then we'll we can keep all this in. This is fine, side talk, and then I want to make sure that people know how to connect with you as well,
Okay.
and get your advice on presenting and your different memberships and communities that you're involved in. But the Safety on the Edge. So and I'm paraphrasing a little bit. Safetyontheedge.com. You can check it out. But Malcolm Staves, who's the global VP of Health and Safety for L'Oreal, um, became pretty good friends with Corey Pitzer, who's CEO of SafeMap International. They did some work together, and they just were aligned, I guess, in their kind of philosophy approach towards safety and risk, probably more importantly. And obviously NASP and Safeopedia are both partners in Safety on the Edge. And so it's going to be a 2-day conference, March next year, 2025, in Berkeley, California.
Mhm.
It's I think $900 or something to attend. It's quite inexpensive for a conference of that magnitude. They have again, you can go to safetyontheedge.com and check out the speaker list, but they have all of the biggest names really, in safety coming together with academia to talk about how we move not just, ourselves, our organizations, but the whole industry forward. And it's going to be super exciting. It's going to be into smaller, more intimate kind of conference than maybe what people are used to, and a real opportunity to rub elbows and hobnob a little bit with the presenters, as well as other safety professionals. So we'll definitely be sharing out more information about that. But if you've got your professional development budget for next year, you should definitely be looking at Safety on the Edge.
Yeah, so I reached out to Corey, and I asked, because I saw the speaker list and I'm like, oh my gosh. And of course, here's the inferior complex. It's like, oh my gosh, I am not as good as Tom Kraus or Corey or Malcolm. I'm like, oh, I'm just a small speaker in the big pond. But I reached out to him and said, hey, so do you guys have all your speakers for the conference? And he's like, no, here's a proposal form, fill this out. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I've explained to him, I said, well, one of the reasons, I'm not saying this to, sway your way or anything, but so my budget is exhausted because we run fiscal year. So I don't have another conference in that would be the last 2 quarters of our fiscal year. But the one thing is, if I get asked to present, my boss is more than willing to let me go to those conferences. So
Right.
I've been actually applying for more conferences, because if I do get the opportunity to speak, I love that opportunity, but it also allows me the opportunity to travel to go to those. So
Yeah.
I do got the email from Corey, so I will look at that. But yeah, I'm really excited. I'm excited to kind of see Safety Connect go live. Kind of that's what I've been kind of coining it as, but I know
Yeah.
it's
Well,
different. But
yeah. Well, we are looking at how we can kind of, I'll say, merge the two efforts, right? So that it isn't two separate conferences, but sort of one, um, you know,
plays off the other.
yeah, yeah. And so we definitely, people have told us over the years, why don't you do an in-person one? And we thought, well, there's no need to do another in-person one because, there's so many out there. But I think what Corey and Malcolm are trying to do is really unique, and it is a real interesting opportunity. And we're in conversations right now about having like a Safety Connect VIP event, whereas if you're a safety connector, and you're going to Safety on the Edge, maybe we'll get a hospitality room or something, and
Oh,
we'll
that's
get
sweet.
together and we'll
Roll out the red carpet for us. I love it.
yeah, 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 just get to meet everybody in person. So we're excited about that. The Safety on the Edge did want to have a virtual aspect because, again, they recognize that not everybody can
Yeah,
attend. So we would probably roll that into to like a mini connect kind of opportunity. So again, we're all working together,
I'm excited.
to bring value to the industry. So
Awesome.
yeah, so again, if anybody is listening in and they don't know Randy, or watching and they don't know Randy, um, I mean, he's obviously a super great guy, tons of experience, very approachable, accessible. And so how can people, and you can even drop your YouTube channel in too, but how do
That'd
people
be
connect and get in touch with you?
That'd be awesome. So easiest way to find me is on LinkedIn, Randy Milliron. And then also I do have a YouTube channel, which is RSM 307 Studios. I do have videos. Obviously, I have some spoof videos from our Safety Connect experience, some videos from personal experience at conferences, and just video gear and different stuff. So I started in 2020, and I want to go all in, and I just love creating videos. So I just finished up. I think I'm in the final edit of doing our glacier vacation trip. So that's actually on there in my YouTube shorts. So I'm just that's the thing that's been probably the most eye-opening about my YouTube channel is people are really loving the short form content. That's
Yeah.
just really exploding my channel right now. So, a long format version may get 25 views, but dice it up into short content and I'll get over 500 views per video. So it's just like people have the attention of a goldfish. 6 seconds, they want to switch, they want to swipe.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
but yeah, that's the way you can get a hold of me, and hopefully you join our wonderful community and get the opportunity to rewatch the replays from Safety Connect. Like I said, I can't say it enough. A lot of great presenters in there that offered some really good gold nuggets there for you to learn and really help you not only improve your knowledge of safety, but improve your safety career overall. So just get involved with the community. That's the only thing I can say.
yeah. And we forgot to give Sarah Bellini Ross a shout out for the backdrop there.
Oh yeah, my wonderful backdrop. So she created this and she threw it up in actually it was in one of the virtual lounges, and we're like, oh, we got to grab that. So
Yeah.
she downloaded it for her, or put it in the chat, and we were able to download it. So it was really great. So, you have those kind of boring backgrounds or blur your background, and it's in my office is way too busy to unblur my background. So yeah, we got to give a shout out to her.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Randy. Always a
Hey, no
pleasure
problem.
chatting, and I'm sure we'll be talking soon, and we'll be collecting feedback from people who did attend Safety Connect 2024 and figuring
Awesome.
out how we can shake it up a little bit for 2025.
I love it. Anything I can do to help, I'm here.
All right. Thanks so much.
All right. See ya.